the Going to College Education Podcast from the Irish Independent in association with Quality and Qualifications Ireland, QQI, promoting quality and accountability in Irish education and training.
You're very welcome along to the Irish Independent and independent.ie Going to College Podcast 2020. This is the final in a series of 4 podcasts being recorded this month, covering the Leaving Cert results, CAO offers and the college experience during COVID. I'm your host, Sinead Ryan, and I'll be joined each time by a panel of experts as we take a look at the complexities of surviving college during a pandemic in association with QQI. You could download and listen back to each podcast on independent.ie, Apple Podcasts, Spotify or SoundCloud. Now, up today, there are some nerve-wracking weeks ahead as everybody prepares for the new college year, although those already in place have found a bit like what it's going to be like studying under COVID. They've been doing it since March, but for first years, it'll be more than a small adjustment. And today we're discussing the practicalities of college life, what you can expect, and some tips and skills to help you make the most of it and perhaps ease that transition. Now, joining me today, I'm delighted to welcome Nóirín Deady. She's the first year experience coordinator at UCC. Róisín Nic Lochlainn is Welfare and Equality Officer at NUI Galway, and Hannah Bryson is Education Officer at UCD. You're all very welcome along to the podcast today. Now, maybe if I can start with you, Nóirín. First years, it's going to be a little bit different this year from other years. Now, they mightn't, of course, spot that difference, but you're going to be very much aware of it. What can people expect the college experience to be like, particularly in the early couple of weeks?
Hi, Sinead. Well, I suppose to start with, orientation is going to be different. All our content is online, and in UCC we've put content online since the 14th of September, and currently we have 3,460 students engaged in online content. So all their orientation is online. They'll be meeting students online in small groups. They'll be meeting their lecturers online as well, and all small seminars will be organised online so that students can make a smooth transition to university. We'll start lectures on the 28th of September then. But I suppose the most common questions that we're asked at the moment is in relation to accommodation. First years are wondering, will they book accommodation, what their timetable is like. And we're saying that to them that going to college is not just about attending lectures, and there are more benefits, I suppose, to living close to the campus despite the restrictions that are in place at the moment. And our advice is that students should have organised or be organising their accommodation, because the university aims to deliver as much face-to-face teaching as possible within the public health guidelines. And in addition to contact time, students on campus will also benefit from student services such as the UCC Library, that will be open, the UCC Health Services, the Mardyke Sports Arena, clubs and societies, and my own office will be open to students, in particular during the first 6 weeks. So, it is important to note as well that some restrictions will lift and students may require to be present on campus for more contact hours during the second semester, and searching for accommodation in the second semester might prove to be a little more difficult.
All right. Well, I mean, I've heard some very inventive ways now that accommodation, it might turn out to be one of the very few good news stories of this whole crisis. And that is the accommodation sector, which is the bane of every student's life every year. And suddenly there seems to be an uptake in supply. There's even hotels offering accommodation on a kind of a nightly basis, because of course lots of students aren't going to require their full 9 months, 7-day accommodation if they're only on campus for a few days of the year. So maybe that's something that'll help them along. Róisín Nic Lochlainn, you're over in Galway. Now, of course, all students will have concerns about COVID-19 particularly. What do you think first years in particular will be most nervous about, and how different is the campus going to look from normal?
I suppose, it's going to be a really different year for first years this year. I think the main concerns I'm getting is about making friends. The way lectures aren't going to be going ahead as normal, and tutorials aren't there'll be very well where they are on campus. It will be in much smaller groups. But we're still encouraging people to join clubs and societies and things like that. Like, I honestly think joining a club or a society is one of the best ways you can meet new people and make friends. And I suppose just because obviously nightclubs and things like that aren't going to be open this year, getting involved as much as you can, like running for SU elections and getting involved, like things like the events crew, which is something that we got funding for this year. Things like that, and just getting involved with other students as much as you can, because I think it's more important than ever this year that the well-being of students is looked after.
Indeed. And one of the best ways of getting involved with anything is to put your hand up and offer to do something. My experience is you do that 2 or 3 times and you're elected onto a committee, whether you like it or not. So maybe that's a good opportunity for people to get involved. Hannah Bryson, can I come to you? You're going to be the education officer in UCD. Can you just give me a little idea of what an education officer does compared to the other duties that we've been hearing about?
Yeah, so an education officer, I would organise like what students can be on committees. So on program boards you usually have like 5-6 students, so I'll find the students to kind of make sure the student representation at every level. I also have students coming to me with personal cases or just issue that's going on in the college. So whether it's students not getting extra time for classes, or wanting clarification about assignments, or all doing cores and the assignments are, all due at the same week, I would come in and I'll kind of just talk to the school as an independent person, but someone who's been a student last year, and kind of advocate on their behalf for just different things. And I also deal with employability. So I work with on-campus businesses to kind of create a partnership between them and the Students' Union, and to help them advertise their jobs to students. And we're hoping this year to do like online workshops around LinkedIn, around CVs, around barista training. But it's just kind of, I mean, obviously barista training is term 2, but it's if the restrictions ease up, but it's just kind of, how can we help our students get in the door and improve their educational experience and their employability experience.
Okay, and well, sorry, now barista training to me is a life skill. I think that that everybody should have that. Every household should have one. That's just me with my coffee addict head on talking. Thank you, Hannah. That sounds like a very wide-ranging job. You're kind of the middlewoman between students and college. Okay, Nóirín, can I come to you just in terms, and by the way, either of you, Hannah and Róisín, just jump in if you have something to say on this. I want to spend a little moment on the practicalities of the first month in college, in terms of, look, Nóirín, if somebody gets their course choice, it's their 5th choice, they arrive in college, within a couple of weeks they know this is not for them, they're not happy. What is the process generally if you want to get out of jail card, or you need to leave or transfer courses, generally speaking?
Okay, that's a really good question, because I'm getting lots of emails at the moment from students who feel that they might have chosen the wrong course before they've even started. So, of course, some students, their points have increased and they didn't include specific courses on their CAO, so now they're looking at those and looking at changing into them. The university has offered a change of course option for students, and Academic Council approved the change of course policy in 2012. So since then we've had in excess of 800 students changing their course. Of course, we honor the CAO at all times, that system. So we can't actually change students into their preferred course until CAO closes, but they can make an early application and we give them access to content of the program that they want to change to. They have to meet the entry requirements and the, like in terms of points and matriculation requirements. And of course, we have to have space in the class. And because there is movement, sometimes, there are spaces in classes. So we accommodate students as much as possible in the change of course. So once they identify a course they want to change to, we'll accommodate them as best as we can. The other option, of course, that students have is to withdraw before the 31st of October if they find themselves that they're not ready for college, they're in the wrong course. If they withdraw before the 31st of October in UCC, they will get a full refund of the fees that they've paid, and then they can make an application to CAO the following year, or they can decide, well, I'm going to take this year out and maybe do a QQI FETAC qualification. Very few will be looking for a year out to go traveling and exploring, I'd say, this year. So it's probably best that they try and either stay on their course or maybe change if that course is wrong for them.
Okay, and this sounds to me like there's a little bit of musical chairs going on there as well, because of all those factors kind of have to dovetail for somebody to be able to change their course. And I'm just conscious this year that there are reports of lots and lots of people not getting their first or second choice, and maybe some of those options they had put down in a little bit of haste and maybe need the time just to see if it'll be a fit or not. Hannah, can I ask you, does UCD allow change of course, return of fees similarly?
Yes, so UCD, we actually let people withdraw up to the end of mid of November, I think it is. So that was a change we made last year, which is great. It gives the students 8 weeks to decide if it's for them.
Okay, so it's a little bit of extra time there if you happen to decide that.
The other great thing is that we have several courses. So we have the arts and humanity and the science courses where you basically, you can come in, say, on chemistry, but you do a third of your modules in chemistry, and then you could do a third in genetics, and then a third in biology. And then you decide out of those, and it's the same in the arts and humanities. You could come in on history and then do economics and philosophy, and then you could decide, actually, I don't like history. I'm just going to continue the next year with philosophy and economics.
Okay, it's a great way of doing it, because I think it kind of reflects the fact that it's very, very hard to decide at 18 or 19 or 16, a lot of the times going into the senior cycle, what it is people want to do and how they want to progress in their studies. So being able to swap around is quite helpful. Róisín, in Galway, NUI Galway, what kind of options are available for students there who feel, oops, maybe this isn't for me?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as what Nóirín said. There's the withdrawal from your course option by the 31st of October, which is, it gives you a lot of time to think about it and see if the course is for you. I think it's a really good thing to have. I actually done it myself in first year, and it's a really easy process. You just have to email the head of your course and explain to them your situation and say why you don't think maybe that the course is for you. And there is the change of mind option as well, and it's all free. So, and if any student does ever have any queries about their course, they have an academic advisor, and they can also contact the education officer in the SU if they ever need anything.
Indeed. And I mean, I think a lot of the students arriving in will realise very quickly that actually there are huge supports available that mightn't have been available in secondary school, but would certainly be available now. And there's whole departments there just to look after them and help them along with those decisions. Now, one of the areas I thought would be useful to discuss, not least because it's been in the news very recently, and I know, as student advocates and resources, all three of you are involved in the ongoing welfare of students coming in. Hannah, the whole area of sexual harassment was featured in the news, particularly in UCD, because we heard Avi Ní-Sullivan's story, which I'm sure shocked many people, and the college assures us all that steps are being put in place to help that. But what about students? And I'm not talking about UCD specifically, but do you think enough is done to tackle this area? And could students be worried about reporting unwanted advances?
Yeah, I think it's something that that's happening a lot, and I think it's something that it's coming to the forefront that we are having this discussion. I mean, the UCD, we are having a consultation, so they were doing this before this whole story came out. But they're also, what we as an SU have been promoting is consent training. I think that students just need to understand what consent is and kind of know that if they say no, that is fine. And I think coming as an 18-year-old who never got consent training, that was something that would have helped me a lot, to know what's right and what's wrong, and when can I talk. And I would say as an SU, we make sure to do rape training, so we know if a student comes and discloses to us, we know how to help them or where to send them. So I think most people being educated and on what, and people knowing that these people are not going to be afraid if you come and, tell them that you've had an issue. And we are advocating with UCD, and we hope to do this with other universities, that there needs to be a clearer policy that if there is an issue, you can report it to the university without having to go to the guard, because some people just don't have the bravery that is needed to do that, as it is a very daunting thing, but they shouldn't be taken any less seriously by the universities.
Sure, and also maybe be given support to go to the guards if that is what they prefer to do. Nóirín, consent classes, there's some kind of division over whether they should be compulsory, should they be for men and for women, and how they should be framed. How does UCC approach this issue?
Well, I think we've been champions in this area for a number of years. Last year, for example, we had bystander intervention training introduced as part of the orientation program. This year, it's part of our online orientation content. It's a compulsory module on that program. So all students, all first-year students will engage in that content. If they don't, we will be following up with them to engage in that training. Also, there are very clear guidelines and policy in the university in order to support students, and many staff have been trained in this area. The consent training started to take place last year, and two years ago actually, and it's ongoing. So, and a lot of students actively engaged in the consent training last year. So it's ongoing. It's something that we take very seriously in the university, and we have received significant funding from the government to roll the bystander intervention training out to all students, and we expect that we will in the coming year. So we do take it very seriously.
Okay, and that's a positive message, I suppose, for everybody. And I know the Minister, Simon Harris, has indicated his support of this particular area, which seems, I have to say, to be far more rampant than maybe many people had realised. Róisín Nic Lochlainn in NUIG, you're a student union welfare officer, so this is right up your alley. What kind of complaints come to you, and how is it addressed there, particularly in terms of the student who may be a little bit nervous about saying, well, what happens if I speak out, or am I right or am I wrong, or what will the university do about it?
Yeah, well, there is an official complaints procedure for students to go to, which I guide students through, and I help them to write up the complaint. But I think in situations like that, the first and foremost thing that I would do is check that they're okay and just be there for them. if they are ready, if they're comfortable to go to the guards and report it, then I would offer to go with them. But just being there, like as a human being, I think throughout the whole process is just the main thing for a welfare officer to do, and make sure that they get the justice that they deserve. And I think NUIG has been really good on this topic. We have this program called the Active Consent Program. So all of our staff are currently being trained in consent and disclosure training, and it's being rolled out last year. The whole engineering course had consent training, so that was like the first department that had consent training rolled out to them. And this year, like following Simon Harris's announcement, every course is getting consent workshops and consent training. So I think it's a really positive thing, and I think it's something that every student union has to have, really, because it is rampant in colleges. You know, I think it was something like 50% of people experience it in their first year of college. So
it is an extraordinary figure, and indeed has been highlighted across the board. So it is something that unfortunately is going to remain with us, and maybe, you know, one positive out of COVID is that maybe with people working remotely or working from home, studying from home, perhaps the prevalence will dissipate somewhat. All right. Well, listen, thanks to all of you for joining me on this, which is the final episode of the Going to College podcast series. Nóirín Deady, Róisín Nic Lochlainn and Hannah Bryson for joining me on the show. And listen, ladies, the very best of luck to you with your first year intakes, and indeed with all the students returning. I know that the challenge is going to be that little bit greater than it has been up to now. Don't forget, you can listen and subscribe to the series on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and of course on independent.ie or wherever you get your podcasts from. I hope you've got some useful advice and information from the series, and I want to wish you the very best of luck in your college days, which really can be, despite the current COVID crisis, still be the best years of your life. So make the most of it. I'm Sinead Ryan, and thanks for listening.
The Going to College Education Podcast from the Irish Independent in association with Quality and Qualifications Ireland, QQI, promoting quality and accountability in Irish education and training.